This is a 1983 engine that I will be replacing. First thing I will do is I'll take the seat, false tank off, take the crash bars off, lower fairing, and the feet pedals. I've already drained the oil and radiator fluid out. That's the engine I'm going to be taking out. Got the seat off, got the false tank off. Now I'll be taking the air filters, all this stuff out so I can get to the carburetors. And I will be taking out the radiator, the alternator, and the crash bars. Well, I have the seat, the false tank off, the foot guards, the engine guard, the radiator off. Same way on this side. I've got all the bling wear off there. I took out the airbox because I'm not taking the carbs out. I'm just going to take the carbs off here and raise them up and tie them up there and leave them so that way I don't have to take all the cables off. I'll take the carbs off on these 4 points there, and now same on the other side. I've still got to disconnect the tach, the brake, and there's a subframe right here that comes out. I have to take that air canister out. I do have the tube off there that goes to the air box. I got to cut the stator wires that I've just soldered together. So I've drained the radiator, taken the drainer off, drained the oil, took the oil filter off, removed the radiator. Now I have to loosen the clamps connecting the left and right mufflers, and I got to remove the exhaust flange nuts and the right muffler mounting bolts. I'll separate and remove the mufflers. Remove the crankcase breather storage tank, and then cut the stator wires. And now on an 83, you have to be careful because the steel brake lines get in the way, so you got to move them out of the way. And then I'll disconnect the engine sensors connections for the oil sensor, temperature gauge, and they're on the back. I'll remove the starter motor cable from the motor, and I am taking the starter out because I'm going to put that on the new engine. I got to make sure the fuel valve is off, and I disconnected vacuum advance hose at the number 3 carburetor. And then I'll remove the tachometer cable from right cylinder head and loosen the clutch cable adjuster and remove the clutch cable. Remove the carburetor inlet pipes, and I'll put a bungee cord underneath the carburetors to keep up on top to hold them in place, and then I'll remove the rear brake light switch spring. And then comes the real fun part. I remove the rubber boot off the drive shaft to expose the U-joint. And that's the real trick on this bike, because it takes forever to be able to get in the right location. This piece here, I'll take off, and there's a C-clip in there that you got to get a light in there, move the boot out of the way, get the C-clamp tool in there, and get the clamp out. That's the whole tough part of taking an engine out. And I'll do some of this, and we'll come back to this. When you have all the nuts and bolts off the muffler, it just, when you get the last one out and you jimmy up a little bit here, it all falls down. So make sure you got nothing underneath where the muffler's going to crash or catch it when it falls. So far I've been working on this about 2 hours, the whole project. Next step I'm doing is I'm taking the fuel lines off the pump and the tachometer cable off the fuel pump there. So that'll be my next project here. Toughest part about taking the engine out is getting the circlip off the boot, off the drive shaft. Okay, to get this C-clip out there, took me an hour. You got to move the boot back, and then there's the C-clip you're trying to get off. Once that comes off, you can move the boot back and the shaft back. It doesn't come clear off till you take the engine out. I've also taken the wire off the sensor. I've got the carbs jacked up and held up with a bungee cord. Took the thermostat plug off. Now I'm ready to take the bolts out to drop the engine. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 4 bolts out and take the shroud out, this shield out, and we'll go from there. It took me about an hour to get that C-clip off, and if you move the bike forward and back a little bit, you'll have a bigger opening. This will turn, and if you move it just right, you'll have a bigger gap to get your C-clip pliers in. Now we got the C-clip off. Now what we did was we took the clutch cable off the bike, just hang it up out of the way. And next thing we're going to do is take these 2 bolts out and the top out, put it on the center stand so we can get a jack underneath it, and we'll be pulling the engine out. Make sure you got all the wires and everything disconnected, and I missed this wire here. That probably goes to my neutral switch. There's a plug up at the top that unplugs, and just unplug it, take it out. I'm going to take the engine out on the left side. We've got it halfway out. You can see where this C-clip went on. And there's the engine halfway out. With the 83 engine, you have to be careful of the steel brake lines right there. When you take the mufflers off, take the right side off first. Leave the left side bolted on. That way you can spin this muffler a little bit to get this connection out from this piece here. And then take the right side off, take the mufflers completely off. I've been putting bolts and nuts and washers back on where they come off so that I know where they go when I go to put everything back together. Next thing I'll be doing is I'll be cutting the famous 3 yellow wires. I will be taking the carburetors off. I've taken the air box out, and then when I'll disconnect the carbs, I'll just bungee cord them up on top so I don't have to take the cables off. And after you got everything out, here's all your parts: your muffler, your air box, your pegs. There's your motor that's out. You'll have 1 wire with a plug still on the motor. And then you see where the 3 yellow wires get cut off. And there's another plug that gets unplugged. What's remaining on the engine will be your radiator overflow, your fuel lines to the carburetors, your tachometer, your vacuum advance hose, your carb spark plugs there, and the other side. You have your battery cable left hanging out, and then your vacuum hose, and those are the only hoses you got. When you're taking out, you gotta be real careful with these brake lines. I scored that one a little bit, they're just on the verge. So that's how you take an engine out, step by step, the way I did it. Tune in next week when I put the new engine back in. And you also have your battery cable just waiting to put on the new motor. Thanks. Hope you learned something. What can we tell you? Have fun.